Today on Political Access, we've got Bernie Sanders for the Democrats up against Josh Hawley for the Republicans. This was suggested to me in the comments, so let's dive right in, and I'll talk more about it at the end. But a couple of thoughts to mention are, this is a difficult matchup. In theory, this would be Sanders, the left-wing populist, against Hawley, the right-wing populist, and I think that's true. But the things that make it more complicated are Bernie Sanders, he's gotten a little bit older, and he's not as much of a fighter against the establishment as someone like Donald Trump would be. I know a lot of progressives wish Sanders put up more of a fight, calling out the establishment in 16 or in 20, and he should have bucked his party more than he has. Now, Josh Hawley, the unknowns for him are he's a relatively newer senator. He's from Missouri, and a lot of people don't really know who he is or what he's all about. So he would have to get his name recognition up, and with those factors, it does make it more difficult to analyze. I think Sanders would be strongest on economics. He would be weakest if he goes in a left-wing identity politics, social justice direction. Hawley is going to be strongest, I think, on the right-wing populism, America First, securing the border, pushing back on some of these topics like equity, and he might be weaker on an issue like abortion or health care, or if he focuses too much on tax cuts or the budget deficit. So, having said all that, let's get into this. Let's start in Alaska, and I have that as very low double digits, safe for Hawley. Hawaii, of course, safe for Sanders, over 10 points. Back up to the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, safe for Sanders. Nevada, leans for Sanders. Idaho and Utah, safe for Hawley. Arizona, tilt for Hawley. Montana, Wyoming, safe for Hawley. Colorado, low double digits, safe for Sanders. New Mexico, likely for Sanders. Back up to North and South Dakota, safe for Hawley. Nebraska at large, safe for Hawley. The 2nd District, leans for Sanders, probably 2 or 3 points. Kansas, safe for Hawley. Oklahoma, safe for Hawley. Texas, that will still be over 5 points, likely for Hawley. Minnesota, that'll be likely for Sanders. Iowa will be about 4.5 to 5 points, leans for Hawley. Missouri, Josh Hawley's home state, very safe for him. Arkansas, Louisiana, safe for Hawley. Let's go up to Wisconsin. This will be about 2 to 3 points, leans for Sanders. Illinois, safe for Sanders. Michigan, this will be about 4.5, 5 points, leans for Sanders, could get over likely. Indiana, low double digits, safe for Hawley. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, safe for Hawley. Florida, likely for Hawley. Georgia, tough call, but I settled on a tilt for Hawley. South Carolina, safe for Hawley. North Carolina, leans for Hawley. Let's go to Ohio. That'll be about 4.5 to 5 points. Leans for Hawley. West Virginia, safe for Hawley. Let's go up to Maine. At large, likely for Sanders. The 1st District, safe for Sanders. The 2nd District, leans for Hawley. New Hampshire, that I have is about 5 to 6 points, likely for Sanders. Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., all safe for Sanders. Let's do Pennsylvania. That'll be about 3 to 4 points, leans for Sanders. And finally, the last state, that's going to be Virginia, and that is going to be likely for Sanders, somewhere between 5 and 10 points. So there's your map, and that comes out to 276 for Bernie Sanders, 262 for Josh Hawley. Sanders is able to squeak by and win this election. Now, there's a lot of unknowns. I think Sanders would run up the margins well enough in a lot of the typical blue states, the West Coast, Illinois, and the East Coast. In a state like Nevada, I think Sanders would do a little bit better. Arizona, I have that going back to Hawley. I think Sanders would probably be viewed as a little bit too out there for a newly purple state like Arizona. They like the establishment there. Similar with Georgia, I think the Atlanta suburbs would come back a couple of points toward the right. Hawley would be able to pull it out there. In Iowa and Ohio, I think that would get just under 5 points. Those states have gotten a little bit too red for the Democrats to seriously compete in. But I think the economic populism of Bernie Sanders would give him an extra couple of points there. And of course, in that Rust Belt, that would go towards Sanders, and that again is due to the economics and cultural issues. Again, if Bernie Sanders comes out with any kind of a social justice, group identity message about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it gets away from the universal policies of economics that really hit hard on the working class, he's going to win those states. He might even win it by a few more points. With Josh Hawley, again, I don't know exactly how he would run. I do think he would be weaker on issues like healthcare and a lot of the working class issues on culture, crime, education. That stuff, I think he would probably be better on, and that would make him competitive in the Rust Belt. So I can't guarantee this is how it would go, but this is just the best I came up with, given with what I had. Now, another thing to mention is, if Bernie Sanders does actually go in that populist economic route, he goes after corporations, he goes after the ultra-wealthy, that is going to help him in most places. But it's possible in some of the wealthier cities, or especially the wealthier precincts, if those super high income earners, maybe Silicon Valley, if they feel threatened, by some of that economic populism, they actually would not turn out for Bernie Sanders. So there is that caveat with someone like Sanders going toward the populist left on economics. Now, Hawley, I think, would do well in a lot of the states. Certainly in Florida, Sanders would be viewed as a socialist. That would give Hawley a mid to high single-digit cushion there. Texas, I think, would still be over 5. In the South, I think Hawley would do a little bit better than Sanders. So there's a lot of different factors in this race. Again, Hawley, he's a relatively new senator. He'd have to get his name recognition up. Sanders would start out being more well-known and probably a little bit more popular. Now, the X factor for me is the media. Which way are they going to go? If Sanders actually wants to be an outsider, come after that Democratic establishment, really go after the people in power, then the Democratic Party and the media, they're going to completely turn against him. We know they did not want to support him in 16 and in 20. So we might see something like what happened with Donald Trump against Bernie Sanders, where the party establishment and the media completely turns against him, and they run all kinds of smears. But then Josh Hawley, if he also runs as some outsider going after the Republican establishment, it's going to be Donald Trump all over. He's going to get smeared. And I think that would end up clashing with Bernie Sanders, and Sanders would come out with the advantage. So I think this is a fascinating race to think about. There's plenty of room for debate in some of these states. Of course, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and the Rust Belt. But maybe up in New Hampshire, that margin might be a little bit different. Maybe they wouldn't go all in on Bernie Sanders. It's a tough call, but this is just what I settled on. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this particular matchup? How do you think it would go, given the unknowns, and given how you think these two would run a national campaign? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.